What's up everybody, and welcome to episode 9 of my State of Xbox Game Studios series. For this episode, we're looking at a developer on Xbox's roster that I might have the most experience with, Ninja Theory. Let's get into it.
He's seen you. She's wants you. I know you. He needs you.
Headquartered in Cambridge, UK, Ninja Theory was founded in March 2000. However, we're gonna fast forward 5 years as their beginnings aren't relevant to current day Ninja Theory. You just need to know that by 2005, they had very limited capital despite employing over 50 people, so they signed a deal with Sony to publish their next game. This deal prevented bankruptcy by funding development of what would become Heavenly Sword. However, it would now become a PlayStation 3 exclusive. According to founder Tamim Antoniadis, negotiating that deal was soul-destroyingly difficult. Furthermore, between the high budget and poor sales, Ninja Theory lost all their in-house technologies to Sony because of contractual agreements. It's a shame they had to deal with PlayStation when they were at their worst, but at least they kept the lights on for their next game, 2010's Enslaved Odyssey to the West. This time, Bandai Namco served as publisher, which meant a multi-platform game that could use Unreal Engine. However, despite it also being on 360 and PC as well as PS3, in an eerily similar outcome to Heavenly Sword, the game underperformed to the point where it was unprofitable, despite also being positively reviewed with a cult following developing long after sales mattered. I am unfortunately in that camp, as I got Enslaved about a year later and thoroughly enjoyed its excellent story that complemented its engaging third-person gameplay. It certainly put Ninja Theory on the map for me. Unfortunately, the low sales didn't result in bankruptcy, as immediately after the completion of Enslaved Odyssey to the West, Capcom chose Ninja Theory to develop the next entry in the Devil May Cry series, as despite poor sales history, it was impressed by the company's work, especially on Heavenly Sword. Once again, DMC Devil May Cry was a well-reviewed title despite the reboot designs of Dante and others being highly controversial, resulting in the team receiving death threats from toxic fans. Nonetheless, finally, Ninja Theory released a game that was a commercial success. DMC reached the top of the UK, US, EU and Japanese sales charts, and for the first time they received royalties from a project. I personally enjoyed the game, but could see why long-term fans would take issue with the redesigns. Certainly not enough to send death threats though. I'll never understand that level of toxic fandom. Anyways, with rising development costs due to the upcoming PS4/Xbox One generation, Ninja Theory decided to diversify its portfolio of games and split into smaller teams. For example, the company partnered with Disney in 2014, providing additional development on Disney Infinity games. Smaller teams eventually prompted the developer to evaluate the idea of independent AAA, where they would own the IP and publish the game themselves. Said game would still have high production values, but would be sold at a lower price to reflect the smaller scope. This led to 2017's Hellblade Senuas Sacrifice, a mature story-focused third-person action-adventure game that launched exclusively on PS4 and had a team of only 15 people working on it. Since the game had a small budget, it was not promoted heavily with advertisements, but was still a commercial success, becoming profitable within 3 months. Hellblade also won 5 times at the British Academy Game Awards, critical acclaim that validated the independent AAA business model, and I tend to agree. I thoroughly enjoyed Hellblade when it came out in 2017 and wish the industry would make far more shorter experiences that retained high production values. However, despite the success, this AAA era didn't last long, as Microsoft announced that they had acquired Ninja Theory less than a year later, at E3 2018. Antoniadis said that they opted for acquisition as, "We want to be free from the AAA machine, and make games focused on the experience, not around monetization." This would allow them to continue building smaller, risky games with creative independence such as Bleeding Edge, a small multiplayer-only shooter that was a passion project for someone on the team, and developed by 25 people compared to the hundreds you'd see on a AAA game these days. It was released in March 2020 and scored a 62 on Metacritic, but the game was undoubtedly a success. Most importantly, it had a healthy player base via Game Pass for a few months, so it did what it needed to do. Aside from a Series SX version of Hellblade 1, that's all Ninja Theory has produced post-acquisition, but they have also announced 2 other games. Of Of course, with Hellblade basically feeling like a smaller scope PlayStation Studios game, it was obvious we'd see a sequel that could use the Xbox money to have the scope scaled to the higher production values. What was surprising though was that this would be our first glimpse of the then next generation, as Hellblade 2 was announced at the Game Awards in 2019, before we even had a console announced. Finally, the studio teased a new experimental game, Project Mara, in January 2020, which according to them will be a real-world and grounded representation of true mental terror, and will be based heavily on research, interviews, and first-hand accounts to recreate the horrors of the mind as accurately and believably as possible. So, how confident am I in these two narrative-focused games? And will they help establish Ninja Theory as a premier Xbox studio that rivals PlayStation in this area? Based on their history, I'm very confident. Since announcement, we have already seen true gameplay of Hellblade 2, and it looked amazing from a production and narrative standpoint. It might be a while before we see it still, as we know it's not out by summer 2023 due to it not being at the summer showcase, but whenever it does come, it has every reason to be great. With Project Mara, they've already established their credibility tackling deep themes like mental health in Hellblade 1, and so I'm sure that whatever experiment they're working on, they'll once again do the same in this true horror setting. The only issue I take with Ninja Theory is that both games got announced way earlier than they should have. 4+ years between announcement and release is far too long, but I have no reason to believe that they won't be some of the best games of the generation, and a true tide rise for Xbox game studios in the eyes of narrative-focused gamers. Let's just hope that their days of no one playing their games at launch is now truly over, and Ninja Theory could hit that next level commercially to match their already well-deserved critical acclaim.